Alright, Boruto chapter 74 is out, so let's talk about what happened. The chapter is called Baptism because Boruto and Kawaki get ninja baptized by Daemon later on. And I thought it was a kind of funny name, and the covers of Mitsuki. The chapter starts off with Eida, Daemon, and Amado arriving to the Leaf Village from their train ride, where Shikamaru and Sai are there to greet them. So since Eida and Daemon are now here in the Leaf Village, we could probably kiss a code invasion in the near future goodbye. It doesn't make sense for this man to attack the village while Daemon is here, even if he has a 10 Tails army now. In fact, it was kinda hinted at by code in chapter 71 that the next time he would meet Eida and Daemon is when he's finally become an Otsutsuki and can tell whether his feelings for Eida are real or fake. So a meeting between them before then just feels wrong. So I think they're gonna go a different route entirely with code for now. Anyway though, Sai and all the nearby ninja and civilians are blushing over Eida, where Sai thinks to himself, "She's so beautiful," whereas Shikamaru isn't all that affected, which is a reminder that different people get affected to different extents. Shikamaru is one of the least affected people we've seen who aren't immune entirely like Otsutsuki, and I do hope they elaborate more on what exactly leads to this difference in effect besides just being simple-minded like Delta. Anyway, Eida says, "You can skip the stiff greeting, Shikadeer. I know your plan quite well. Your cohabitation proposal, it's intriguing. I humbly accept." And Shikamaru's like, "Thank you. I thought you might." Sai then says, "You must be tired. I'll take you to your lodgings. Please follow me." I guess Sai's just an Uber driver now. But then Eida says, "Thanks for the offer, but I won't need a guide." And then she starts levitating, much to the shock of Shikamaru, Sai, and the others, and probably a decent amount of you guys too. This revelation is actually really important though. There's only a handful of ways to gain the ability to fly in Naruto, and even less options for straight up levitating and flying in the manner that Eida does it in. You've got cyborg rocket feet like Delta's, Onoki's lightning boulder jutsu, 6-path senjutsu, a unique use of the Rinnegan by Tendo Pain, and being a Otsutsuki. These are the ways we've seen people fly in the past, besides things like riding a bird like Deidara or riding sand like Gaara and stuff like that. Well, Eida clearly isn't using rocket jet feet here, so we can cross that option off. At best, it would be a very subtle and hidden cyborg ability, very different from Delta's. And let's be real, it's not Onoki's jutsu because Eida isn't a ninja, and she didn't have Onoki as sensei to teach it to her. And Onoki and Mu are also the only stone ninja we even never see use that ability. It's probably not 6-path senjutsu since we don't see any of the markings, the Truth Seeker orbs, or any reason why she would have it. She could theoretically have a Rinnegan third eye under her bangs, but Pain's the only character who even does that using the Rinnegan, as well as all the other Rinnegan jutsu. Everyone else sucks and doesn't use them, so it seems unlikely Eida would bring those back. And then the last and probably most likely option left, in my opinion, is that Eida has an Otsutsuki connection one way or another, as I've talked about in previous videos. One being about whether she and Daemon might have karma seals, and the other about whether they might have been born part of Otsutsuki like Indra and Ashura or Toneri. So, go watch those videos after this one if you haven't already, because I think they're very interesting. Anyway though, we see Eida looking behind her and notice all the civilians staring at her before she begins levitating, and Daemon explains that Eida doesn't like standing out, so they'll go from above. Eida then says she already knows where the location is, so she flies over that way, and Shikamaru seems clearly annoyed and worried that Eida has another ability they didn't know about, which is at least one of those abilities she hid from code. And honestly, Eida probably still has more combat-relevant abilities she hasn't shown yet. So while she made it seem like she's not that great of a fighter, I won't be surprised if she actually is pretty good, but is just hiding it. I know I've been on this scene for a while, but another interesting thing about this whole scene though is that, while maybe less people will be right there staring at her, there's also going to be a lot of people staring at her in the air because she's flying over the village. So that's just going to make her stand out in a different way, and she also revealed a hidden ability of hers to everyone in the process. However, I think Eida just preferred to stand out for flying over standing out for her love ability because she hates it. And Shikamaru's on the same page as me here as he says, but she's standing out plenty. And then Amado finally comes out of the train smoking his cigarette as usual and explains to Shikamaru,
"It's not an uncommon feat. Flying is completely run-of-the-mill among the Otsutsuki lot. Even Boruto and Kawaki may start zipping around before long."
Which is interesting for two reasons. One, it's kind of implying Boruto and Kawaki are going to learn to fly soon, probably without any training like usual. And second, it's another nod in the direction of Eida and Daemon being Otsutsuki to some extent. Amado almost makes it sound like they are Otsutsuki too, without directly saying it. He's just like, yeah, it's completely normal for Otsutsuki to fly. Almost as if they were a part of that Otsutsuki group, but he didn't outright say that they were Otsutsuki either. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Shikamaru then says, "I didn't think I'd ever be seeing your mug again, Amado. There's no escaping it anymore. This time, you're going to spill everything you know." Which is basically Shikamaru saying, "My goodness, damn it, Amado. You've been withholding information left and right, and I've had enough. Since you're still alive after all that, you're gonna tell us everything you know later today." But knowing Amado, he'll probably tell them a little bit more, but still leave out some details as he sees fit. I'm super excited to see what new stuff he tells everyone though, because whether it's about Eida and Daemon, Kawaki, or himself, or Otsutsuki, it's still information I want to know more about, so I personally can't wait for that to get revealed next chapter, hopefully anyway. The scene ends with Amado just staring at Shikamaru, helping give me the impression that he'll find a way to keep some secrets still, or at least try to. The scene then shifts over to the apartment, or whatever place they're at, with Boruto and Kawaki, where Boruto is trying to look at the bright side of everything, commenting on how they prepared this nice place for them on such short notice. And then Konohamaru explains that the property actually belonged to somebody else, but the leaf twisted their arm into giving it to them. And Boruto says, well, it's a top secret mission that the fate of the village depends on, so they ought to be understanding. Which doesn't really make much sense because it's a top secret mission. So the property owner probably wasn't told very much about this mission to be able to understand it. But maybe they just said, hey, this mission is top secret, but the fate of the village rests on it. And they were just like, okay, fine. Meanwhile though, Kawaki is being as moody as ever, saying,
"Hey, Boruto, why are you so cheery? Quit being so cocky."
And then Boruto calls Kawaki out and says, huh? Why can't I be cheering? Who wouldn't get excited seeing such an incredible pad? Quit picking fights with me. Kawaki scolds Boruto again about how they aren't here to play, but rather for a mission. But Boruto reminds Kawaki that their mission is to live here. So if Kawaki stays uptight, it's just going to be suffocating. So one thing I want to bring up here is how the way Boruto and Kawaki are arguing seems different to me than their bickering in the past. To draw a comparison with Naruto and Sasuke, you have the way these two would argue with each other in early part 1, like in the Land of Waves and Chunin exams, but that started to change after Sasuke got knocked out by Itachi, where Sasuke's personality started to change because of his anger, and their arguing changed from goofy bickering to more serious arguing. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here, because Kawaki feels more like his older self with this super big attitude and moodiness, and Boruto looks genuinely annoyed when he says, quit picking fights with me. So we can see how the rift between Kawaki and Boruto is progressively growing, just like it did with Naruto and Sasuke. In any case though, Konohamaru interrupts the arguing though and says, "Stop it, both of you! It's crucial that we get along with Eida, remember? If you two are like this, it doesn't bode well." And then Kawaki has a flashback from last chapter, when Momoshiki was standing behind Boruto in the Hokage office. So we can tell this is partly what's making Kawaki so anxious and angry. He's clearly very wary of Momoshiki still, and I'm sure this will get progressively worse and worse until it finally leads to problems later on down the line. Just like it did with Sasuke, except it had to do with Itachi, not Momoshiki. We then switch over to Sarada and Mitsuki. where Sarada is a little concerned about how Eida can see them with her Senrigan, so watching her in plain sight is just weird. But Mitsuki explains that Shikamaru just wants to apply a little pressure on Eida, which basically means that, well, yes, Eida can see that she's being watched, it still is an incentive for her to behave and not do anything harmful to the Leaf Village, because she's being watched, as she knows. Team 10 then shows up because they heard a gorgeous woman was coming, and they were curious about it, and Chocho's kind of funny when she gets all hyped up and says, "She's after Kawaki, right? Which totally makes that foreigner my rival, so I came to check her out." And Sarada's like, "I see," with a sweat bead on her cheek, basically meaning, "You're an idiot, you stand no chance, buddy." But hey, Chocho has that mad confidence in herself. And then Inoujin and Chocho start going back and forth, but Mitsuki interrupts and says that Eida is here, where Eida arrives in style, and Chocho and Inoujin are blushing, and Sarada and Shikadai are watching their reactions rather than looking at Eida themselves. And Inoujin and Chocho have visibly fallen in love with Eida, and Shikadai comments about how he couldn't clearly see her face, which tells us that if you don't see Eida's face clearly, you probably won't fall in love with her or be under her influence at all. Which is probably why Eida chose to fly to the place instead of walking. While she stands up for flying, at least she didn't have the whole village fall in love with her. The most interesting reaction of them all, though, is Mitsuki's, as Sarada notices that Mitsuki is just staring at the sky with his eyes wide open, and it appears that Mitsuki is experiencing the feeling of love or attraction for the first time, as he says, "What is this? Emotion. I've never felt it before." Sarada then asks if Mitsuki is okay, and Mitsuki blushes and says, maybe not. Eida and Daemon then head into the apartment, or again, whatever place they're staying at, where Konohamaru tells them that the sensory unit is on continuous standby for support, and they can communicate with each other using Ino's mind transmission jutsu, and to let Konohamaru know if anything happens. Now, Nishi is part of the sensory team again. This will likely prove to be completely useless given his track record. But as Konohamaru begins to leave the apartment, Sarada tells him that Eida is there, and as she comes through the door, where Boruto's like, "Huh?" Kawaki doesn't react at all, and Konohamaru gets all flustered. Sarada keeps yelling to Konohamaru since he didn't really respond to her, and so Chocho asks if they should get a closer look to check it out, and Mitsuki's like, "Good idea!" all enthusiastically, and he's still blushing, and he has this big smile on his face, which is kind of funny looking seeing Mitsuki like this, but it does have important implications. Either Mitsuki isn't part of Otsutsuki at all, like a lot of people have theorized, or there's a sort of cutoff to how Otsutsukified you need to be immune to Eida's lovability, where maybe you need to be at least 50% Otsutsuki, or at least 25% or something to be immune, and so Mitsuki, theoretically, maybe has like 5% of Otsutsuki DNA, but he's not immune still. But we don't know for sure how that all works in regards to her ability, so we can't say. Either way, definitely means Mitsuki isn't mostly Otsutsuki or anything like that. At best, he only has a teeny tiny amount of Otsutsuki DNA in him, and that's at best, as he might not have any at all. Anyway, Sarada then comments to Shikadai that it doesn't seem like either of them have gotten affected yet, and wonders if that's because they couldn't see Eida well, or because of some individual variation. Moegi then shows up and scolds her team for showing up when she told him not to, and she asks about Konohamaru and says, "He better not be ogling and drooling over her. Be strong, lil Konohamaru." Guys, I told you Konohamaru was high in chapter 72 for a reason. Look, Moegi is even calling him Lil Konohamaru. My man's even got a rapper name now. This explains why Konohamaru hasn't gotten as strong as we hoped he would. He's been spending all this time learning rap from Killer Bee. The scene then shifts to Lil Kono freaking out and trying to calm down, and then Eida activates her Senrigan and laughs and says, "Lil Konohamaru, eh? A childhood friend. How sweet." Which means she probably just listened to Moegi talking to Sarada. Konohamaru then gets more and more flustered, and it's pretty funny to look at, and he says, you see," and then he falls backwards, flat on his back, completely knocked out. Boruto checks on Konohamaru and sees he's knocked out, and then he tells Eida to come downstairs so they can talk, and meanwhile, Kawaki is still completely unfazed by everything. But then Daemon jumps on Boruto's back for a piggyback ride, like he always does when greeting people. And as a side note, Daemon has to be insanely fast, because he always blitzes people with the piggyback ride, and that's how this scene was drawn, as a speed blitz. Daemon introduces himself as Eida's little brother though, which surprises Boruto and Kawaki, who apparently weren't told Daemon was coming too, as Kawaki says, "Hey, what's up with that? We weren't told about any companions." And Eida notes that was Kawaki's voice, and she starts sweating. And then Daemon says,
"You Otsutsuki, you're capable of killing big sis, right? I never let you do such a thing."
Kawaki then gets mad and is like, "What are you going on about, bastard? Are you nuts?" And then Daemon jabs back, saying,
"Quit it with the attitude, Kawaki! Come at me, so I can show you real good what I mean."
So Daemon wants all the smoke right now. And Boruto's like, "Hey, what are you saying?" And Kawaki's just like, "You ain't worth wasting my breath on. I'll just throw you out." And then Kawaki runs towards Daemon to drag him out Boruto. And he swings his transformed arm towards Daemon, but it just gets reflected, much to Boruto and Kawaki's surprise. So then Daemon gets up Boruto and says,
Sorry, no more cheap tricks, I promise. Try me again."
So basically, Daemon nerfed himself by getting up Boruto, so he can't reflect attacks, so that way he can just flex on Kawaki. Kawaki gets pissed and activates his eye and throws rods at Daemon, and Daemon just catches all of them. One in his mouth and the others with his hands, which shocks Boruto and Kawaki, and then Daemon blitzes Kawaki and kicks him in the face and knocks him out. Boruto then gets pissed at Daemon and goes to attack him too, but Daemon just beats Boruto up and knocks him out as well, showing everyone in the room who the bosses are. When Boruto finally wakes up, he sees Kawaki's head laying in Eida's lap, with Eida caressing Kawaki's fade. And then Eida says,
"I apologize, Boruto. That was a very harsh greeting."
Boruto then complains and asks why Daemon did all that, and Daemon says,
"I thought I'd show you from the very start that defying us wouldn't end up well for you,"
since Daemon would just beat them up. Kawaki then wakes up and gets up super fast and stares at Eida, which makes her blush really hard. And Daemon says,
"Hey Kawaki, big sis lap is nice and soft, right?"
And my goodness, Daemon needs braces ASAP. His teeth are horrific. Surely someone like Amado could do something about this. They're terrible. But Kawaki just gets angry again and says, "Give me a break." And as a side note, it looks like Kawaki's been getting his older personality back lately. As when he first came to the village, he was always moody and swore a lot. But then he started to warm up to everyone as he spent time with Naruto and Boruto's team. But now he's kind of starting to go back to his old ways again, with a constant moodiness and anxiety. Eida then starts getting flustered and says,
Kawaki,
But then Shikamaru interrupts via an intercom and asks Boruto if they've already met Eida and Daemon. To which Boruto says, yeah, they underwent a real baptism by fire just now, courtesy of Eida's escort, which is where the chapter titled Baptism comes from. Shikamaru apologizes and says his plan was to do proper introductions, but they just flew off on him. And he asks if something happened, but Boruto just says, "It's alright, I think we can get along." And the scene then switches to Shikamaru, Naruto, and Amado, where Shikamaru says, "Amado's with us right now. Even I barely have any intel on the siblings, especially regarding Daemon, plus various other things. But we're hoping to begin sharing all that." Naruto then says, "Alright, start talking, Amado. Don't leave anything out. No more secrets." Amado then says,
Fine, as long as you just let me smoke.
Now, I like this scene here a lot because Shikamaru's like, "Alright, bro. We know nothing about all this stuff that you should have told us about." And Naruto's like, "Alright, Amado. Tell us the whole story this time. Don't leave stuff out again. No more secrets." And Amado is like, "Okay, fine." And he did tell Eida in chapter 71 that he would tell everyone everything when he got back to the Leaf Village. So he could genuinely spill the tea on a lot of stuff this time. But I get the feeling that he's going to hide something from this story. It just feels too soon to reveal every single thing about Amado now. Otherwise, he won't pose as much of a threat as a somewhat antagonist, and he won't be as interesting to the readers either, since there won't be any mysteries anymore. So I still hope he leaves out some details like usual, which will definitely piss Naruto and Shikamaru off when they realize he did that again in the future. Boruto then gets the last panel saying, "Yeah, this is going to be quite the mission." So overall, I think this chapter had some nice moments to it, giving us a reveal of one of Eida's other powers she's been hiding, and some other mini nods as far as Eida and Daemon's possible Otsutsuki connections, while also giving us a hint in the other direction for Mitsuki, implying that he's probably not Otsutsuki at all, or at the most, only a very small part Otsutsuki. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen in love with Eida. We got to see Daemon flex on Boruto and Kawaki. We got a few funny moments with Mitsuki, Chocho, and Konohamaru. And best of all for me personally was just the ending, the setup for Amado's revelations, and possibly another Amado info dump next chapter. As I've been dying to get some more info on Amado and his plans and what he's done so far, as well as more info on Eida and Daemon and the Otsutsuki clan. I can't say for sure exactly what Amado will or won't tell everyone, but any information he gives will be really nice to finally receive. And while I'm personally okay with the slower pacing and the more character interaction based style of chapter here, I do think that Ikemoto could have gone harder with some of the funny moments by giving us some more humorous drawings like Kishimoto used to do in Naruto. It just would have made the chapter a lot funnier and more enjoyable in my opinion, as I think a lot of people could get past the slower pacing if they were just entertained in a different way, which could have been heavily humor-based in a chapter like this. The Konohamaru scenes were pretty good, I thought, but they could have just taken it a step further throughout the chapter as a whole. Like when the anime finally gets around to adapting this chapter, I know for a fact they will make it way funnier, and I think the manga should be trying to do the same. Kishimoto did it in Naruto, so there's no excuse not to do it in Boruto. But that's my main critique for the chapter. It just could have been funnier given the situation. And the monthly release is always annoying, but I'm just going to save that as a whole separate video discussion, I think. Obviously, Code didn't invade this chapter, and he didn't even get a single panel at all for the second chapter in a row, which makes me wonder if they might want to go an interesting route with Code's plan instead of something obvious like an invasion, especially since Daemon is in the village now. I'm very curious as to what they'll do with Code moving forward, but I'm anticipating that they won't show Code and Bug for several chapters now, after having shown Code's Ten Tails army. Just like how they didn't bring up Amado's cyborg for several chapters after the pod was first shown. In this case, I think they'll wait several chapters before they show what Code's plan is, which means they'll be focusing more on Amado, Eida, Daemon, Kawaki, and or Momoshiki in the next couple chapters. With the next chapter probably being another dialogue-heavy chapter, focusing mostly on Amado, similar to chapters 45 and 46, when they did the Amado interrogation info dump. I imagine it being similar here, but just with different information this time. But I definitely look forward to hearing what he has to say. But I want to hear what you guys think. How'd you feel about this chapter? Tell me what you liked and disliked about the chapter, and also let me know how you feel about Code not showing up this chapter. Do you agree with me that we might not see him for several chapters, or do you think he'll show up next chapter? And also, what do you think his plan moving forward will be? And lastly, are you hyped for Amado to do some talking next chapter? And what things do you think he might reveal? And also, what do you think he will continue to hide? Let me know all your thoughts to those questions in the comment section below. But that's a wrap on today's video, so thank you guys for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.